At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story.
Hello again, this is Stephen Shaw, co-host of Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. Tonight we have our guest, Michael Forrest, who's an author and collector and of rare objects coming out of Mexico all the way down to Peru. So he will be a fascinating interview. In fact, we even have one of his objects that we have collected ourselves from him. So we always start our show with a story or an encounter. So I'll start with one of mine. I was 21 in Salt Lake City at the Mormon Tabernacle Choir back in 1981 in December. And I'd always kind of wanted to hear the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. So anyways, after they had done singing, I got up and I was walking out, and there was this young couple, a male and a female, about my age, maybe a little bit older, that just had these beaming smiles, just came up to me and shook my hand and called me Matthew. Said, "It's been so long since we've seen you." And I had this strange feeling like I'd seen them before, but they absolutely had seen me. I said, "No, my name is Stephen, but no, thank you." And where had we met? So we talked for a little bit, and you had this eerie feeling of deja vu that we had met before. And I'm sure people have had that before, but I think there's kind of a doppelganger of me walking around, or maybe more. So anyways, tonight's interview is going to be very fascinating. We're going to be talking about the artifacts being found in basically what you call Mesoamerica, from Mexico down to Peru. And these definitely show that we have been a very, very vibrant and very intelligent species for upwards of 20,000 years. So that's that. And we'll get Leslie in here in just a second. So just hold on.
Yes. Welcome, everyone, to our show, the Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your co-host, Leslie Shaw.
I'm Stephen Shaw.
Thanks for joining us. We have a wonderful guest tonight. It's Mike Forrest is one of the people that's been discovering these incredible artifacts down in Mexico. He and others have uncovered evidence of a lost civilization in Mesoamerica, and a discovery that has challenged mainstream archaeology's understanding of history. He created aliencarvings.com, a comprehensive repository featuring over 15,000 stone oddities from Mexico alone. He has written 3 books: Tula, Mexico, The Lost Civilization; Abuelos de Jalisco, Mexico, The Lost Civilization; Anunnaki, The Alien Atlantis Mesoamerican Connection, which we have a copy, and yeah, you were nice enough to sign it for us.
Yep.
We met at Contact in the Desert about, I think it was 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years.
Right?
2 years ago.
And,
2 years ago, yeah.
But this year, we decided to go ahead and purchase one of your pieces, as you can see here. Look at these things, people. Look at this thing. It's got like gray alien faces on it with the giant eyes.
And it's got a rocket ship too.
And there's there's a spaceship with looks like a shrimp kind of guy coming out of it, with these little arms.
And on the other side.
Yeah, and then on the other side, we have it's like a little spaceship sperm. You see it? It has a little tail, it's a spaceship with a tail. And I'm sorry, I'm a little, my brain is a little hot. Our temperature is quite high today.
Well, why I was
But I wanted you to tell us everything about it.
and the type of cement or concrete that is also had the particles of of grass that have been dated to last I heard, almost 20,000 years. Is that correct, or is that like?
Yeah, I've seen carbon dates now 25,000 years ago. Um,
Wow.
and it ranges, there's earlier ones too. There's pottery and ceramic that are only 1,000 to 3,000 years old. So it,
Right.
it, it varies just as you would see in this culture. But at one point, if you go down to Peru, you'll see the big stones at the bottom of the walls, and then you'll see what the Inca did and these other civilizations did on top of it. And the technicality of the stonework is far more advanced the further you go back. And
Right.
so we're starting to understand that there was something a lot more advanced the further you go back, and that's why it's like
Yeah.
that. At some point, there was a drop off and a complete loss of technology and technique to get some of these things created. These
Right.
stones, like the one that you just showed there, it's got a really interesting white face to it, and so is that just the polish? Is that the type of stone? You look at the back or on the sides where it's been damaged maybe from moving around in the earth, and you'll
Yeah. You can
see
see there's
that
been
it
some
looks
damage to it.
differently. And so we've actually done chemical or scientific analysis through scanning electron microscope that have showed that this is actually like a geopolymer glaze that's put onto this stone. And it's a very unique glaze. It has a lot of really awesome properties to it compared to, a typical ceramic or porcelain that we would see today. Um, so it's really an interesting thing to see on something this old. These are the stones that are dating back the oldest too, from Abuelos de Jalisco, and
And these are
it's
actually like a
yeah.
constructed concrete, right, of the ancient world.
Well, some of the pieces are like a geopolymer, so it would be kind of like a concrete. It just depends on the piece and how it's made. Some of the other pieces are actually a piece of rock, and then they put this glaze, which is a geopolymer that dries on the surface that they're able to sculpt into. And that's how they're able to get that 3D design and certain things that you just wouldn't see in a normal stone carving setting very easily on a stone like that. In terms of a lot of the stones that they're using have a pretty soft Mohs scale. A lot of it's calcite based, 3.5, 4. So it's very soft, fragile,
Easy
cracks
to carve.
easily.
Then.
Well, it's not easy to carve because it cracks and it's so brittle.
Right.
So
Oh.
we believe they actually had a way of making it when it was wet or when it was softened to the point where they could do this. And that's why there's no mistakes because they were literally
Right.
doing this while it was drying.
Right. Yeah. Like with Puma Punko, we had a conversation about a month ago, you and I, about
Bingo.
Puma
Yeah.
Punko.
Yeah.
We're on
Yeah.
the same page about that. And
Yeah.
what can you say? Tell our audience, what can you say about Puma Punko?
Well, there's a scientist that's done a extensive amount of research, Joseph Davidovits, and his research on Pumapunku and those H blocks, it exactly says the same thing that I just explained, that there's an advanced geopolymer that was used to make those things, and that's
That's
could
why
be
they're
the
so
same.
perfectly the match to each other.
Yeah,
Right.
the big Olmec heads. If you look at
Yeah.
the surface of it, they have these little holes, these little pits and pores. And we find
Right.
this in a lot of the Tula pieces as well. And if you were to take a two-part epoxy and make a resin piece, you're going to notice that it bubbles. And so
Yep.
what we found is if you cut these pieces in half, or if they break in half in shipping, you're going to see the inside of it, which looks just like ceramic. There's not a single pit or pore found in the entire thing until you get to the surface. And so that tells me that it was dried in that shape or whatnot. It wasn't formed by the earth that way.
Right.
Right. See, anybody that has worked like I did, like in the military, I was a CB, so I did a lot of concrete and cement pours. And now we did a lot of stained glass stepping stones. We
Yeah.
did a huge amount of these and in geometric
Wow.
shapes and in circles and that kind of stuff.
And they do have a lot of little bubbling
no
right at the
matter how
surface,
much you mix it, it's always going to come to the surface
there's a
with
little bit of air.
bubbling. You know,
Yeah,
it's true. It's
the impurities.
And so the glue, some of these things have stones put in them, right? And you were able to carbon test that glue, right? That's how you're
Yep.
doing a
There's
lot of
the
your
car.
carbon testing.
Yeah, a majority of it has been done that way. I actually have a couple bone samples right now that are getting tested. They actually got the collagen needed to do the test, which has been a difficult thing due to the age, finding
Mm.
good collagen because it has to be preserved in a fashion. And, a lot of the stuff where they're getting dinosaur ages are fossilized. And so, unless it went through a fossilization event, then you're not going to have that. And that's what we're missing on a lot of these pieces. However, we did get actually, I think I have it sitting here. Let me
Yeah,
show
they're
you.
old, but they're not that old.
Right.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of bronze pieces and stuff too. So the metallurgy, silver, bronze, even iron is being found, and complex mixtures and
No
alloys that we're
kidding.
not
They
using
had
today.
iron back then.
Of
Yeah,
Wow.
course.
I have a trident, about a four
I
foot
say of
tall
course, but
trident, and the three tips are it's like 43% silver, like the rest is iron and tin. So it's
Which is
very
interesting. It's a
awesome.
very interesting amalgam. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
years before iron was supposed to be
Well, it's the combination of the
discovered,
percent.
the ability to make it.
It's the percentages that people are interested in that
Mhm.
that are different.
Yeah.
It's the
No,
percentage.
and like so a lot of these pieces glow in the dark. They have like a green. You can
Yes,
maybe see it
that's
a
one
little
of the
bit there, right?
strangest
Oh,
things about this.
yeah. We of course in your book we have of course the chess piece.
Yeah.
These are amazing. These things that
Now, were you the one who found those? Did you find those?
No, no, no. I'm just documenting this. I work with 30 different families in Mexico, and
look how these things are fluorescing, people.
I didn't believe it at
Oh,
all.
it's they're
Oh, the green screen.
the green
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. The
They're
green screen
green.
it won't show up. Unfortunately, people.
Go
Sorry.
figure.
You have to buy
Yeah,
his book.
yeah.
I can't turn
It's
off the green
censored.
screen, otherwise you people will see our.
Yeah, you have to buy his book. I'm sorry.
No,
But
I'm kidding. Actually, I could, but
digging down in Mexico for me is illegal. Like I don't have the permits or the permission to do anything like that, and I'm not going to go and invade in other people's stuff and take their treasures. Like that's not at all my theory here. And so the people that are doing this are the people of the Toltec tribe. This is their land in Tula. That's been their land in their family for over 300 years. Um, they
and they're
have,
benefiting from the discovery. Then that's very good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, well, they're definitely, they gave all these pieces to the INAH because when UNESCO was formed, and I think it was like in the early 1980s, you used to not have to turn in pieces. You could go to other countries and dig stuff up, and it was finders keepers. And then in
Yeah,
the 80s
those
that
days are
changed.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah, now there's treaties, right?
Hmm.
And so in this case, it's a really fine line because these pieces are not accepted by the government. They don't
Right.
they don't
They're
look at them
calling
as
them
real,
hoaxes or modern hoaxes. So,
right?
but one of these days they're going to realize what they're letting out of their
Well,
country, and they're going to be
we're
upset.
talking. You're talking about Mexico here, but what about places like Peru and Honduras and
Yep.
Ecuador?
It's
Are those
it's
different?
thick. It's thick there too, and there's treaties pretty much everywhere. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on those places. I know Peru for sure because I tried to get a Nazca mummy after they said that they were fake, and they seized it right there and said that it was still of cultural antiquity or cultural heritage. So it was a big deal, actually. The
Right.
Ministry of Culture had to get involved, and yeah.
So they might come looking for this piece someday, huh?
I don't think
Well,
so because
They
we
want us
have a
to give it
letter.
back someday, maybe.
We have a letter with their letterhead stating that these pieces are not genuine. So that's not our fault.
Yeah.
I mean, customs told us directly that you can buy as many of these as you want. I've put that to the
right.
test. I've sent millions of dollars to Mexico. Um, it's definitely it's a weird thing, and then when you start really breaking down what it is with the Anunnaki and who they are and
Yeah.
how that interweaves with other mythologies and books and things, it gets pretty
Yeah,
deep. So,
Yes.
that was our next question.
Well,
Yeah.
it's actually not so much a question as we've studied Sitchin's work, and so we know that his theories are that the Anunnaki had a strong foothold in the Americas,
Mesoamerica,
in
Yes.
Meso and South America,
yep.
especially, and maybe even as far north as
Utah,
into our
Canada, Grand
country here in the
Canyon.
USA. About halfway
Yeah.
up into the
the
USA.
the Obeid statues of the lizard people,
Yep.
that can be found, of course.
and well, the Hopi too talk about the ant people and
The Anunnaki.
interesting. Ant is
Genus.
Anu and Naki is people, and so they're literally ant people. Is translates in their language to Anunnaki.
Yes. Yeah. No,
And they were
I
supposed
feel
to, have taught them how to survive the Great Flood, which I don't know. You probably have heard that the Younger Dryas comet impact zone has finally been dated to 12,850 years ago.
wow.
And so we now
I
have
didn't hear
proof
that.
that there was a celestial impact event in 12,850 years ago that was
Yep.
spread out over a wide field, because comets they break apart in
Right.
the atmosphere, and they cause these airburst events in front of them because they're moving so fast.
Yeah.
The Younger Dryas comet was 62 miles wide
in diameter, yes. Mhm.
Wow.
and it was a dirty snowball, they call comets, right? So as soon as it hits our atmosphere, the ice melts away quick, and all of these giant rock pieces are traveling at 40,000 miles an hour into our atmosphere. That they cause these airbursts where it literally ignites the oxygen in the atmosphere in front of them and sets all the forests on fire. That's what caused that Uccello horizon, that weird little layer of charcoal, 13,000
Yeah, the
years ago.
definitive thing was there's a difference between a meteor or an asteroid strike and a comet strike. It has to do with the shocked quartz and the platinums and the uridium. There's different striation marks, apparently, where it's not as shocked if it's like a complete direct hit. There's because of the differential in the heat and the stress, there is a differential. So that's why they've been able to say that it was basically in the modern day New Jersey, South Carolina, and
up into Canada. And,
it's basically the
Lake
whole area
Superior,
that was basically still like a still like a glacier at that point.
And so if it's along the eastern seaboard, likely some of it hit in the oceans too, and that was what wiped out Atlantis. We like the Doñana bird sanctuary in southern Spain. That's looking like a really good candidate for Atlantis because, for one thing, it's in the right place. It's right where Plato said it was supposed to be, right? Just up from the Pillars of Hercules.
And it has the concentric rings.
Yeah, they've done some ground-penetrating radar and discovered concentric rings on an island in the middle of the delta. And so, and most importantly, there's a debris field of cut stones out in the ocean floor outside of this delta. Look, just like as if a wave, huge tsunami filled a city with water and then pulled it out into the ocean, behind it.
So it looks like the best candidate, but of course, because it is a sanctuary, they're not allowed to do excavations.
But one thing's for sure, if that city really was there 12,850 years ago, it was at ground zero for the worst of the tsunami activity, and certainly would have been destroyed. Anything along the west coast of Europe would have been
in trouble,
destroyed. Yeah, for sure. And then we think a lithospheric shift happened at the same time, which that's why I was bringing this all up, because this really points to your discoveries. Is the Mark Carlotto? Do you know his work?
I have heard the name, but I can't recite his work. No.
He's an engineer that he does cartography,
geolocation
with using satellites, and he discovered at one point that all of the Mexican sites, the big Mexican pyramidal, complexes, they all are aligning to the cardinal points, but only when they were when the North Pole was in the East Hudson Bay.
Yeah,
prior
Greenland,
to the last
area, 22 degrees off or so.
Right. And so
correct.
it's pointing to the fact that all of your the Mexican sites were built prior to the last lithospheric shift, which we think was caused by the comet.
You know the northern hemisphere wobble that creates the spiral at the top of our hemisphere that creates the seasons for the north
precession,
hemisphere?
you mean?
No.
Well,
the spiral.
The wobble. That's where we get the seasons, right? So there's always this going on. And so I believe that that's kind of what happened there in terms um, where we got that wobble, and it could have been from one of these impacts, like you say,
Yes,
a comet
it's like it's
impact.
like it's like it's like knocking a spinning top just slightly off a little bit because of like whatever it may be, like say like a comet or
Comet
like whatever.
impact.
It causes the wobble, which causes this gyration
Yeah.
is not completely perfect
Right.
anymore.
The,
Causes
the
the
20
seasons.
the 22.5 degree tilt that our planet has specifically, there's artifacts from Awelos that show this type of engineering and show the moon being moved, and different ships in the solar system doing things that are extremely unbelievable. However, when you look at the perfection required, that to get all the weather and the geoengineering, the moon in terms of the tides and all the things of harmony that are working on Mother Earth together, these don't seem like accidents. And so even if this comet hit the Earth, it seems to have hit it like a pool ball, where it was at the right impact to do
Yeah.
something that was intended. And
Also,
my mom always said
Yes, I think that's really important.
but
yeah,
lithospheric shift, we think lithospheric shifts are a natural occurrence that happens when the ice ages trap so much fresh water at the poles. I think they become incredibly heavy and more likely to be affected by something like a worldwide tsunamis. You know what I mean? When the comet impacted, suddenly all the oceans are ripped from their beds and water is incredibly heavy. So,
yeah,
you get that much water moving around. I think this is what actually caused the shift.
Well, yeah, there's
yeah.
of course there's there's Hapgood's and and Einstein's Einstein was the last page he had opened when he died was
Hapgood's research.
Hapgood's research
Yeah.
He actually
about
endorsed it
lithospheric
at
shifts.
some
Yeah,
point.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
Wow.
but it's also the information too about the in Siberia, that used to be more of a temperate zone, and the crocodiles were there, and the alder
Yeah.
trees that were found that still had leaves on them, and the mammoths, and things such as that were
Yeah.
still found like even like 100 years ago.
so
Yeah.
that's actually the whole thing. I was like leading up to was so that I could back ask a question inside that, which was, are you finding evidence of that there was a comet impact or a lithospheric shift
or a pole shift or something like that
in the star charts
And
discovered inside?
it's not so much the shift, but we do see these changes, and we do see the impacts of the younger dryas happen, because there's stuff from Awelos in this time period that these beings are riding extinct animals, like sloths that are giant size that could be ridden, and so there's
Right,
these
the
type of
giant
things.
mammoth ground sloth. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that being said, I think that we see depictions that are 25,000 years old with these Anunnaki and these different beings, but then we also see this Bronze Era in Tula that seems to be much newer, because as you mentioned, where there's star maps, and some of these star maps have been depicted by AI, and it says roughly when the last time our stars aligned like this, and a lot of them are coming up the 1,000 to 2,500 BC era. So were they predicting something, or was this what they were, charting what they saw that night? It's hard to say, but
Or it's like a historical record for
So yeah,
what happened.
I have a burning
yeah.
question as far as how they did this artwork so beautifully, like we have in our piece. As far as were they using like a type of laser, or how were?
I,
Do you have any ideas
I
on that? How they
almost
were able
I
to
can
do that?
almost guarantee they were in some cases, because
Or
of the depth
high
of it.
water pressure?
There's these
I'm sorry, you
pieces.
said because
Let's
of
see
the
if I
what?
have one. The depth of the carving. I'm gonna grab one of these
Right.
things here. I think I have one somewhere. Oh, right here. Yeah, let me share here. So, like, this is smooth to the touch, and you can literally, see the detail on there is very high.
Oh yeah.
It's completely tattooed with different, crop circles and that sort of thing. So
Wow.
That I believe was done with a laser for sure. There's just no way because that's green banded calcite, which is a 3.5 on the Mohs scale. It's not a very common stone, first of all,
Yeah.
and to carve it like that, to leaf it, to tattoo it without making any mistakes, um, it's I don't know any artisans right now that can do it. I've asked a ton of them if they can do it. People can do the shaping of the green banded calcite, but as far as doing the tattoo work, I have not found anyone that can match that. So that's an interesting thing that it could be laser or some advanced plasma that we have no, understanding of today.
Do you have a thought? I'm sure you do on the fluorescence, the green fluorescence, and also the red fluorescence in some of the pieces.
Yeah.
The book says you don't. You still didn't really have a clear idea of what's causing it.
I'm actually
right?
releasing a video this week, so I'll say it here first.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we've looked at the green stuff specifically, and the red is a byproduct of calcite. They used calcite in a lot of these pieces, so those are pieces are green banded and stuff like that that would cause that red. But the green itself that's in all the carvings, and sometimes it's part of the stone, sometimes it's not. Some of it's painted on, some of it's brushed. There's all kinds of different applications we found of it. There's
Really?
putties made of it. When you break it down with the EDS and see what's inside of it, what's really interesting that I found, it's a synthetic substance. AI says that we don't have currently in production today, or it doesn't know of in production today. We still have to have it analyzed by PhDs and people who are experts on this field to get true, beyond AI knowledge here. So I can't speak for fact. I can only speak with what AI is telling me. But nonetheless, what's really interesting, that's clear as day, that anyone can look at with a microscope, is that this green powder is bonded to the stone with potassium and iron.
Okay, so to explain to our audience, EDS means
It's essentially a type of scanning electron microscope that breaks down the minerals and all the different components of what you're looking at.
Right.
So you can see that it's where the potassium is, where the iron is, and that's how we know that as a bonding agent, the potassium and the iron was utilized, because only those areas, when you're looking at 50,000 X, are lit up in that color.
Some kind of a spectroscopy.
Kinda,
or
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. Let's say, for instance, if you had that same technique you're talking about, let's say if the things were like coated, let's say the floor, ceiling, and the walls in an area that was dark. If you went into it, would it fluoresce? There's some people that have been down to Antarctica. Let's say it's SEALs. Okay, I won't say their names, but there's one guy that went down there that went into a room that it was 20 degrees below zero outside. He went into this, went through these doors, and it was about 70 to 72 degrees ambient temperature, and all the walls and the ceilings were fluorescing the same color of green.
Wow.
Yeah, he said they were lit, but it couldn't tell what the light source was.
Right.
Just the walls themselves.
It hummed a little bit, but there was no source of light.
It's really bizarre. It does require pretty good light source. Some of them require just your standard bulb will do it, but very lightly. It really needs a powerful UV light to get it to really get out there. And so that brings in a lot of question of why did they do that? And first off, where
maybe
did they
they're
get
playing in the dark.
iron?
Yeah.
Maybe they're playing in
iron and
underground
potassium?
cities like we think.
Yeah. So potassium has a lot to do with potassium and iron, correct?
Okay.
Right. And so if they were to take blood, for instance, and utilize that as a catalyst to get it to stick onto quartz and these different things, that could be the remnants that are being used as the bonding agent to this piece. And so we're thinking that could be where a lot of the demand of sacrifice to the gods, they were making these stone idols, and these are those pieces that have that, and that's what they were using all the sacrificial blood for. Because even in the Aztec times, they were utilizing the woman's menstruation even as a sacrificial blood source. So why would you need that much blood, unless there was a use for it in terms of stone production? And that could very well be the secret of the stone that the stonemasons keep, is that it's blood.
Right. And actually, when you really look at blood, it's very slippery and it's very plastic. Okay, so there could be, water. As far as right. So it's really interesting you're saying that from the standpoint. Yes, but so what I'm going to ask is that, like in the older things that you found that maybe you're looking more like maybe 20,000 years old, the deeper sites, have you been finding the same amount of like the green fluorescence, or have you found a
Nope,
decrease?
none.
None.
None. It only shows up in one time period near the pyramids.
Aha.
Um, yeah, and so we believe that that's the return of Saturn or the uprising of Saturn worship at that time. Because if the Demiurge and Saturn and Lucifer are all kind of the same actor in this, then this would make a lot of sense in terms of why we see Saturn so predominantly on
Enki.
all these
Yeah.
pieces. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
that's the
See,
temple,
that's
the temple of the feathered serpent and the temple of Venus. It's all right there in Tula. So, with Venus
wow.
as such a prominent figure, Venus being Hathor or Ninhursag or these divine feminine
Yeah.
beings,
Right.
Sophia, that could very well tie all this chaos and the fall, etc. You know, with
Yes.
Tiamat, and it's all
Right.
there. If you look at
The
this as
Enuma Elish.
You know,
Yeah, he's talking for our audience. We're talking right now about the Enuma Elish. It's something that Sitchin translated in his first book, the Babylonian version. He refers to it refers to the Sumerian version, but but that's lost to time still. But we have to make do with the Babylonian version. But this is an amazing document, ancient Sumerian knowledge of of our solar system. They knew about Pluto, they knew about Neptune, they knew about Uranus. Thousands of years before they were rediscovered by us. Later.
The strange orbits, the perturbations, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And the Enuma Elish explains the formation of our solar system, and it actually explains a lot of the strange things about our solar system that are hard to explain, like the size of the moon for the Earth,
and the asteroid belt,
and the asteroid belt, and the comet orbits, and why Pluto is where it is, and its bizarre orbit. So it's a fascinating document, and you're finding evidence of it there, aren't you?
Majorly. Yeah. Yeah, the whole story of Tiamat rising up the reptilian armies and creating the lesser gods, we find massive evidence there. And if you look at the story in Egypt of Hathor, she was the Eye of Ra, and she was the emissary. And if you look at the depiction of Marduk slaying Tiamat and separating her body into the heaven and the earth, he's slaying at what looks to be like a one-eyed sun, and that has like a serpent-like body down below it. And so that's, I believe, the one-eyed serpent there. And if you look at the descriptions of the demiurge, it's the twin serpent with the lion faced. And the story in the Pistis Sophia, which is an ancient Gnostic text that they found here back, I think it was the 1800s, late 1800s. And that text is absolutely bonkers when you start looking at the Enuma Elish and that together, because it really tells a full perspective of this story. And the horror of Babylon is likely all these different divine feminines, and so this material world was a soul trap that the demiurge created in the Gnostic legends, right? And so it trapped our souls here. And so even the gods, when they came here, when Hathor came to check on her creation, or Sophia came to check on her creation, she got trapped here. And so that's the cycle of reincarnation of this divine feminine throughout our history. And so that's where we get all these different people that seems like, oh, well, is Zeus Jesus? Or, a lot of people make these connections that are hard to say, because there's such different demeanors and different experiences. But that's the experience here in this universe with our dualistic intent and the unbalanced, because this was created by the demiurge, which is an imbalanced being created by only the female. Everything here is only an attempt to be balanced. And that's where we get these gods that have problems just like we do in all this mythology. Like they run into wars and they die. And how does that work? These are gods, but if they're in the material world and they've manifested here, or they're trapped here, then it's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's the seven deadly sins. Where did we get the seven deadly sins from? The
Those
greed, gluttony, lust, vanity, pride,
Yeah,
wrath,
they
and
had it in
sloth.
spades, the Anunnaki.
They still have it. We got it from somewhere. The
Yeah.
lust, the lust for gold.
And they were jealous, and they were vengeful and unforgiving and vain,
and you look at the
one of them
seven
was Queen
stages of
Slut of
Enki.
the universe. She was like, she was
This
slutty, and tried to sleep her way to the top. It's a very funny how many I saw with studying the Anunnaki. You mentioned Hathor. Nin Hersag is the Anunnaki sister of Enlil and Enki. She's very high ranked Anunnaki, and
right.
the Anunnaki changed their names whenever they changed their jobs, their location, their
Different
tracking them.
incarnations.
And
Right,
also
right.
And then the Egyptians had one name for them, and the Greeks had another
And
name
the Babylonians,
for them, and
everybody
had different names.
Well, if you look at the
Nin
fall of
Hersag was
Babel,
Hathor. As far as we know, she was in Egyptian
yes,
writings. Hathor and Nin Hersag are the same. And Inanna is the granddaughter of Enlil, I believe, and she was the really sexy one that was kind of like Aphrodite. She ended up being Aphrodite and Venus and in the other cultures, and kind of the sex symbol for the
the divine
Anunnaki.
Part of the 12.
Yeah,
right.
She's the whore of Babylon. She was the one used to create all the species that are here on this planet. It was her womb, the divine womb. That's our holy mother, the divine mother, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. The reason it's the ghost to the Catholic is because the Catholic actually were the Romans, and they worship Saturn. So they have a tie to Lucifer before they became Christian overnight. And so this connection, I believe, there's certain things like they have the hat that looks kind of like the fish there or whatnot, that looks like the Dagon suit that the Pope wears. There's a lot of things that they've brought in. They celebrate Christ's birthday on Saturnalia. It's actually not his biological birthday. And so these type of things of giving this this praise to this whenever is possible, I think is something that we have to look at as we're these religions specifically could be a lot of people say they're corrupted and there's all these things. Well, I think the foundation of all these stories are probably connected. However, they've been corrupted over the years in this fashion. And I think we're seeing it right now with AI and a lot of the different tools that we're getting. It's history repeating itself. And when the fall of Babel happened, that was they broke all of the dialects and all the languages and separated it all over the earth. So the reality is these stories in Egypt and these different names of all over in these different cultures could actually be one of the same or part of the original story. And when they say history repeats itself,
there are Anunnaki versions of the Tower of Babel and the expulsion of Adam and Eve, and of course the flood. In ancient Sumerian writings, like there's earlier versions that with instead of God, it's Enlil and Enki.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
I want to ask. I have to really move myself in here or something. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, in your findings, have you found stuff? Let's say, for instance, hieroglyphics or proto-hieroglyphics in some of the pieces that you have found that go further make another connection to the connection between Sumeria and the Anunnaki and the New World.
You can just see by his book they're riddled with Egyptian symbols.
I want him to say it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a major connection, especially now with the analysis of AI being able to compare so many different dialects. Because there's a lot of different versions of cuneiform and the way hieroglyphics are understood. Right. There's also a large span of the Old Kingdom, the New Kingdom, how they did things over the years. And, in Sitchin's work, it talks a lot about the languages and how Enki and Enlil would utilize the languages with the people to confuse each other and to plan things and to orchestrate things where they wouldn't understand or where they would think it was the opposite. And so there was a lot of trickery with the linguistics. So when you're looking at cuneiform specifically, it's it's really challenging to break it down and know, is this the trick version or is this the real version, or when was this, right? So,
and you're seeing Proto-Sumerian on your the more of the
time.
hieroglyphic one, right? The earlier version of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 20,000 years or even, and it really depends. Once we get these bone dates back, we'll have a lot better answer for this. So I can't say for sure right now, but yeah, there's definitely some that's proto versus the versions that we have, but it could be simultaneously or in parallel. It's just we're dealing with Anki's establishment here in Mesoamerica and Enlil's establishment over there in the Mesopotamia, and that might be why it's so different, but yet so much the same, because they were working against each other on separate projects on separate continents.
That's correct. In fact, I read something in Sitchin's work, I believe, where supposedly it took place in South America, where there was a battle between the African American soldiers
Negroid.
and the African American looking faces, the people come from Enki's settlements in Africa, right? But the people that look like Mesoamericans of today, they would have come from Mesopotamia, and so apparently they had a battle, and the African Americans lost this battle, and it wiped out their settlements in the New World, according to.
Have you found any evidence to kind of like say that, or what's your take on that?
I mean, there's race theory is challenging, and I hate to even touch it sometimes because it's so sensitive. But I think the reality is it does speak about this, and when you look at some of the slang and things utilized by people throughout the years, and you look at what the Naga are in the reptilian sense of things with Tiamat and raising the reptilians, and where this comes from, and that if you look in the Enuma Elish with the Adama, the Adamu, and the 750 years that Ninhursag spent to work on this species and that species, we have to understand. And the biggest one to me that I'll tell you that I find is I find the sickle all over the place on these pieces, which is a symbol of Saturn. And when we see this sickle cell disease that only affects certain people, and that to me is the most racist thing out there, is this disease, right? Like, why is it only picking on these guys? It makes no sense to me on that level, other than maybe that there's something here with the creators at B. And when you look at our DNA and certain things, people have found the Yahweh, what is it called, the tetragrammaton thing in our DNA, or this code pattern in there, and so it's very interesting to see that as well.
It makes it look like we've been uplifted, right?
Yeah, we got Nike logos on our DNA.
I'm going to segue on there because about 2 or 3 years ago, I was talking with Jason Martell at one of the I think it's Alien Con. And he was doing a seminar. He's very much into the Anunnaki, okay? He's very much aligned with us, okay? And some of the recent research at that time was showing that around the area of Broca's brain in the brain, that around the neocortex, it showed that human beings, Homo sapiens sapiens, we were uplifted to have the power of speech. It
looks like there's an edit job on that part of the brain.
It's looking like for modern science, at least a couple of years ago, it's looking like there was a cut and paste job done, like a CRISPR job done, to actually give us the ability to communicate with our quote unquote masters at the time.
Speaking of CRISPR and the sickle cell, CRISPR they've proven that they can cure it. Isn't that wonderful news? They've actually
they're working on it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, all they have to do is splice in a different gene, and then the body starts replicating the correct gene, the corrected gene.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
With the Negroids or the black people, there's also thalassemia that is also something that is targeted only for people of that race.
Yeah,
so it's also another thing too that's.
It definitely shows sign of tinkering. The mutation that occurred 250,000 years ago in the fossil record, where we gained a traumatic amount of intelligence and things of that nature.
Yeah.
The chances of that happening again it's double the impossible number of 10 to the 500th or whatever it is, and it's an absolutely ridiculous number to happen again. Like they've looked into it to see what are the chances.
It's an enormous missing link for sure, and it's like about a million years of evolution in
In a
about
short-
50,000 years.
It's
Yeah.
even faster
Yeah.
than that. Yeah.
We went from Homo erectus to Homo sapien in like 50,000 years, and then the next 50,000 years slowly continued to
sapien
change
sapien,
until
yeah.
we became Homo sapien sapien.
Right.
Right.
But this is it's not just a change in the ability to speak, but also this part of the brain is where we imagine. This is how
Right.
it's an enormous difference in the
It's the
brain.
pineal gland. It all comes from the eye, you know?
Right, exactly.
Right.
It always gets back to that, doesn't
Mhm.
it? It always gets back to the pineal gland, the third eye, the awakening, the
We
opening.
see this on so many pieces, and
Yep.
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting because in Egypt, there's the bird and the snake that come out of the pharaoh's little thing on his forehead, you know, and
Right.
so it's interesting
Exactly.
that that's holding this balance of good and evil, or the positive and the negative, you know, and it's what's crazy is the sarcophagi and things that we find in Tula have, instead of that, it's a triple snake that comes out. So it's a trinity snake, and there's no bird there, and so I find that to be interesting also, of you know, with Osiris and the battles that he went through and the story that he has with Horus and things of that nature.
Yeah, and his
It definitely
resurrection, his death and his resurrection, and
it
it sounds like
screams
genetic engineering.
consciousness.
It sounds like they cloned him.
Yes,
We
thought
have
too.
to take one of our little breaks.
Yeah, we have to take a break. Yeah,
So let's get back to Horus and Osiris when we
in
get
just
back.
10 seconds. Leslie, you're kidding me.
What?
Our merchandise store is up?
Of course, my darling. All of our amazing concepts of shirts, mugs, and bumper stickers are ready to go.
No way.
Way.
Even my brilliant Egyptian concept that no one else ever thought of before?
Yes, that one too, and lots more. All at our new store at etsy.com/shop/abductions101.
Wow. I want a shirt and a mug and...
Well, Stephen, and all our curious listeners, just go to etsy.com/shop/abductions101 to see all of our unique designs.
I'm going there.
And we're back. Thanks so much for staying tuned, everyone, with our wonderful guest, Mike Forrest. We're talking about the discoveries in Mexico are absolutely flabbergasting. But, it's funny because we've expected them. We really were expecting sooner or later for the ancient quality of these sites to be known.
Yeah.
That sooner or later we were going to attribute them to the right centuries that when they were, really built.
Yes, well, our audience probably knows already that a lot of the stuff that's been coming out of Egypt for, decades now has just been the same talking point that Khufu built the Great Pyramid.
And it was a tomb, and
it was a tomb.
This stuff drives me mad.
And just 2 years ago, a French team using advanced lidar, I believe, they found under the second biggest pyramid, they found a complex. It looks like a manufacturing or a power complex.
Well, it's like 2 miles down or something.
No, it was 1.2 kilometers below the surface. Okay, so and it's definitely a manufactured. It's not something that occurs in nature. So all the things that we've been told, they're turning out to be true.
It really does look like the pyramids were power stations.
Partly.
Yeah.
And that makes so
I've
much
got
sense.
artifacts that show it.
When you go to
Right,
a new
thank you.
When you go to a new place, let's say you're blazing a new ground, a new settlement where you think you're going to find gold or whatever, right? So the first thing you do is you build one of these pyramids, and that creates the power you need to construct the rest of
the piezoelectrical field because of the granite. Yeah.
Right.
And it might even be more complex than that. So check this out. If you build this pyramid there, it shows on our pieces portals and things of that nature opening. And if you notice around a lot of these pyramids, especially in Mesoamerica, there's platforms. There's all these square platforms all over the place.
They look like helicopter landing pads or something.
Well,
right?
they're for UFOs, and that's exactly what they are. We have numerous pieces from multiple states in Mexico that show just that. These pyramids taking UFOs and landing on there. So what's interesting is that these beings like the Anunnaki, if you go back in the Vedics and the Mahabharata and this type
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thing, you'll find talk of Vimana and ships and flight plans and all this type of stuff with these
right.
beings and Shiva. I have a Shiva lingam right here that we found from Tula. It's even
Wow.
got the little circles all over the top of it, like the one in the river that they found there of ancient times over in India. So
Yeah.
that type of stuff, it's more cross-cultural than I think we understand. And if you go to the Grand Canyon, there's all these sites there, and there's a website where you can see who named all of them, but there's certain sites that don't have any names by there, and they're all named to Temple of Osiris and Temple of Isis, and there's even ones for Hindu gods like Shiva. And so it's really interesting. Back in the early 1900s, there was an explorer with the last name Kincaid, and he found in the Grand Canyon supposedly traces of Egyptian things, sarcophagi, giants, all kinds of stuff that was
From
just
that
mind
cave, right?
blowing.
That went back into and had all kinds of strange artifacts that they just
Yes.
closed up immediately. The government glommed onto it and closed it up
What
immediately.
The
cave?
Smithsonian, yeah.
Yeah. What cave indeed.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's a really interesting thing just to know. And then you have the story with the Mormons and them finding gold tablets that had Egyptian writing on there in the Americas and
Hmm.
talk of Christ, second
Right.
coming in America. And we have artifacts that literally show, crucified beings, um, you know, uh, made of jade. And it's just there's 4 foot tall and
Really?
5 feet wide tablets of this as well, with Lady Guadalupe and Baphomet and certain things on there that just these have been dated at an earlier time, 1825 years plus or minus 125. That's via thermoluminescence.
Are you
Um,
able to do any translating on these symbols?
Yes, yes. People like Laird Scranton has done many things with the Wren and that. He's given me a lot of really great opinions. He works with the Dogon languages as well as the Egyptian stuff, so he's really well versed. Um, but as far as getting down and dirty, these are proto languages that we don't know. So the only real translations out there are done by AI, which have been interesting. They come up talking about things of the Watchers and the Luminaries and um, things that you would expect it to say if that's what it was, and that's probably
Wow.
what it is. What's also interesting is with AI, you can have it backtrack itself and ask, well, on this translation, how did you break it down, and where did you get this information to come up with this answer? And that gives you a pretty good course of research to be able to backtrack it and understand maybe this is a legitimate translation, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for our audience, the Dogon people, they're like a
In
tribe out,
Africa,
they're a
right?
tribe out of Africa
Hmm.
that had
Yes.
they met, or they were met by some type of amphibian type of looking extraterrestrials, and they taught them
Yep.
about like what a pulsar or a double star that's not being able to be seen. Said we came from here, okay, and
Yep.
not until like more advanced science that we're able to see that.
It in
Okay,
fact
what
has
they're
a
talking
smaller
about,
dwarf with it. Yeah, it's a smaller dwarf
right?
star
Something
with it.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool.
They showed them not only that, but the elliptical orbit of Sirius and Sirius B, and that it was
Oh, that's it. That's
Ah,
right. Right.
really? Series B
by
too. Wow.
yeah, and they knew the exact time when the planet would come around in its precession, and they would have this celebration. And the Greek documented this celebration in 3400 BC. This was actually one of the very first documentations of cannabis being used in a ceremony, and
No
they were all
kidding.
smoking cannabis. They said that they had brought cannabis here from Sirius as a plant to help them live in this environment because this was a slightly different than what they came from, and there was a lot of things here that made their survivability tough.
Yeah,
And
yeah, uncomfortable here, huh?
what's crazy is that Sirius B thing and 3400 BC wasn't able to be fact checked until we had Hubble and the
Yeah,
radio telescope arrays in the 1970s or 80s. And
when they
uh,
discovered Sirius B. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, so
Which is
that's
actually the closest planet to us, right?
Yeah.
I
And then you
believe.
look at the Assyrian Empire, Osiris. You see this word Sirius and whatnot in a
Osiris.
lot of
Yep.
this
Yeah.
type of things that are heavily related to this topic. So it's interesting to think that there might be some sort of connection to the Syrians there, you know.
Oh,
Did,
absolutely.
did you ever hear about the IRIS telescope?
I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah, the
Is this the one in
IRIS telescope
Colorado?
for our audience. I think Sitchin was talking about it. It was in 1986, I believe it was.
Okay, no.
A bunch of countries got together and pooled in the money for the expense to put an infrared telescope in space called the IRIS, and it picked up a brown dwarf in our solar system, which is 50 billion miles away in the direction of Orion.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
this, and then we find from these Sumerian tablets that
Nibiru.
Nibiru is supposed to circle a brown dwarf in our solar system. And sure enough, the IRIS telescope spotted a brown dwarf in our solar system. In point
Wow.
of fact, we are a dual star system because a brown dwarf is a protostar just before it ignites into a regular star.
And also, too,
Yeah.
for our audience, the Oort cloud, many people haven't heard of the Oort cloud. We hear about the asteroid belt, but the Oort cloud is literally almost 180 billion miles away, and that's where a lot of our comets come from. So when you talk about Pluto being like 4 or 5 billion miles away and Nibiru being 50 billion, well,
It's still part of our solar system.
Our solar system extends to almost 200 billion miles. And
Yeah.
people don't realize that it's a big place, our solar system.
So we think that because it's in the direction of the Orion's belt, that this is why there's so many Anunnaki references to Orion's belt. And it's in so many different cultures. You see Orion's belt, Orion's belt, Orion's belt again and again and again.
Yep.
And now we know why. It's got a particular significance for the Anunnaki.
Yeah. If you look at the movie Men in Black, it's funny because there's this UFO at the top of the tower from the State Fair. It looks kind of like the Space Needle, and then
Right.
there's these references though that I think it's very interesting how they were inspired, because we're finding things here that very similar.
Yeah, the Men in Black really did their thing. Whenever there would be a
with
sighting in
Orion
America,
belts and
they would show up and get all the info. They would get all the information for themselves. They would interview everyone in detail, but then they would start these ridicule campaigns where they embarrass people into silence just to quiet the event,
or just intimidate people.
If embarrassment didn't work, they would literally threaten your lives and the lives of your families.
That's actually real. So, Michael, do you have any do you want to hint upon any new releases coming out soon as far as your work?
Yeah.
Or
we've got a plethora of science coming out. We've been focused pretty much on that. There's a lot of naysayers and a lot of people who question the reality, including myself. So I have to often take myself back a notch and remember what it took to get the knowledge that I have today, and remember where I was 5 years ago thinking this was all a joke. And so it's been a whole radical shift. And so we've just been trying to focus on that science that people can go independently verify these pieces. We're going to be doing some exhibits, public exhibits in different towns to show these pieces, primarily the crystal skulls. We want to get those out there in front of people. They're easier to move around. A lot of these objects are made of this geopolymer, so they're very fragile, and it's tough to justify moving them often, considering. But we just want to get it out there to people so that they can make this assessment for themselves and be able to use science. So once we pave the way of what science needs to be done, other people can go and independently verify it very easily.
For our audience benefit, could you go over some of the processes you went through to authenticate these pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. primarily we started with carbon-14 and thermoluminescence because we just wanted to know how old it was. We got dates from many different pieces and things. However, when we tried to bring that to mainstream science and knowledge, even Zahi Hawass said on Joe Rogan that he needs a published paper to believe anything. A carbon date, a piece of
Mhm.
paper, it doesn't mean anything to most people in this scientific community. And so
Right.
publishing it in a journal and getting a scientific paper peer reviewed has been our utmost focus. And so in order to do that, we need to have something beyond carbon dating that we can show and prove. And that's required dissecting the stones with, 3D mapping, 3D XRF, getting things broken down with the EDS and the scanning electron microscope and understanding the ins and the outs, trying to find traces and proof. And so now there's a paper that's been um, uh, it's a rough draft at this point. It was just presented over in France, and was met with really high honors. So he's still there, literally right now, and I'm still kind of waiting for a download of information. So expect a lot of good things there. It sounds like I think that the proof is really visible and will be something that it won't be argued in the future. And that's really our main prerogative. Is let's just get this understood that this is something of genuineness, because with the Boogosphere and the Boogosphere symbol popping up on pieces, that we have really good science showing that they're of ancient thing. This could be a warning. This could be something very important for our civilization to understand, or at least
Right.
try to learn about,
Yes.
Do you have any pieces as far as like either that show that giants used to walk amongst us, or have you heard or seen stuff as far as like validating about?
I think
things
they found like a
giants?
giant ring, right? That goes on the,
Bring it right now.
like if you
Check
had
this
a
bracelet out here.
huge
Here we go.
giant person.
Bracelet. All right, okay.
Wow.
I mean, who's
Look at
gonna?
that.
I can get this up to here. It's
And there's a ring, right? Like that would be worn on the finger
Oh,
of
yeah.
the thumb of a linebacker. It's still loose, right?
Rings are massive. There's cups. I've got a
Oh
cup
yeah,
that
these
literally weighs
giant
100 pounds. It's got a big pine cone that sits on top of it, and so it really the depictions on the pieces show a plethora of, some of them giants, some of them even cyclops, certain things like that, demons like the xenomorph type beings off of the Alien movie. We have
Yeah.
all kinds of monstrosities and different types of elongated skulls, and you can see this in biological detail with the Paracas culture down in Peru. There's multiple different size heads and cranial formations that are, they say it's
Yeah.
cranial bonding, but there's been quite a bit of proof
No.
that show
No,
that it's
it
not.
can't be, because there's no sagittal suture, so it can't be a
What's
human
important
skull.
is, even if there is some that are cranial bound, the reason they were doing that was to
They're
honor
To
the
mimic the gods, we think. Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yes, we do what we see.
Yeah. And I think
So
a
it
lot
makes
of this
sense.
now, the aliens that abduct people, they steal genetic material. They steal DNA, they steal blood and sperm and
cow mutilation.
eggs, and they're doing the same thing from cattle and sheep and goats and horses and stuff. And the Anunnaki, blood used to be very important to the Anunnaki. They they thought that the actual soul was in the blood, not in the brain or the heart or whatever, in the blood, and that actually you could steal a soul and transfer it to somebody else just by doing like a transfusion.
I'm really glad you're saying this, because
Yeah.
I have a theory on this that's kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah?
So
Let's hear
there's
it.
these tablets of destiny, right? That Enlil carried around, these tablets, right? They were very important.
Right.
He passed them down through his line, and they eventually vanished. No one knew what happened to them. Well, in Egypt, you have Akhenaten, who his scribe in his tomb has a depiction of Akhenaten holding up these two tablets to the sun, and on the tablets it has hieroglyphics that state "Word of God." And what's really interesting is Word of God. If you look in the Gnostic text, Pistis Sophia, the Logos is the Word. And so then you look at the Tiamat story and the Sophia and the reason that she created the demiurge was because her partner wasn't there. So I think that Apsu was her partner, and Apsu was trapped into the tablets of destiny. And that's why they're carried around in this box. That's why they're led by people with snake staffs. That's why it's such a holy of holies, because it is literally the word of God trapped into these tablets. And that's why these
Right.
tablets are so powerful. It's not just simple text on there. It's a complex thing where it's been bonded or transfused into
Wow.
that stone
And the
Wow.
with blood.
so after
Like a blood oath, almost like.
we think after the Great Flood that a lot of the Anunnaki, having all their projects destroyed, just basically bailed
Mhm.
and left. And we think that maybe the idea of blood sacrifice was them trying to coax the gods back, and maybe that they kind of let it get out of hand, where they were sacrificing the flower of their civilization to try and appease the gods that were gone, essentially, that had already left. That
Right.
region, certainly.
This type of stone that all these Tula pieces are made out of is
Wow.
a type of limestone. When you test it, when you break it down, we talked about how it's like a geopolymer. Well,
Right.
the coloration, this orange color, or sometimes it's more red, sometimes it's more yellow, it is from iron oxide. And so again, we have iron oxide in a manufactured stone. So where were they gathering all of the iron oxide? And I just think that there was
Yeah.
a real cause for the blood to be utilized, at least until the Savior came, or the in the Pistis Sophia, it talks about when Jesus died, he went down there and took their power by 1/3. And it also talks about how he exorcised these 7 demons from Mary, 7 sins, 7 chakra points, the 7 seals, all these sevens, the 7 sages of
Yeah.
Enki. Well, they could be the archons created to do the managing. If you look at the number 21 is 6
7.
plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, 3 sevens, right? And it's also, it mimics the hexagram, because it's the 6-sided thing, the pyramid inverted, and there's 21 watchers who took oath against God, that led the others that went against God, because there was 200 total, but 21
Right.
of them were the head honchos, or whatever you want to call them. And so I believe that that's why they use the Star of Remfram, or the Star of David, now that we have, as this symbol to Saturn. And it's also Saturn's seal, if you look into that as well, which 21 is extremely important too.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
Ahura Mazda and Enki are the same person, and as were Ra is supposed to be Marduk. So there's all kinds of Anunnaki influence
They're
in the
parallels.
ancient Egypt,
They're parallels for sure.
and it
Parallels.
expanded into South America. And
Yep.
Sitchin, poor Sitchin, he died. He would have gone bonkers with your discoveries. I know, it's like,
No.
I'm so. He went bonkers over one bowl that was found in Bolivia, because it had Proto-Sumerian on the and Sumerian carvings on it. It's like, if he had seen your discoveries, he would have probably died on the spot.
He would have lived longer, I think, actually.
Either that or,
Yeah.
So I
He's
gotta live
definitely up
longer.
there smiling right now, for sure.
Oh, he's being vindicated.
Thank
I mean, those two
jerks at
those
the British
two
Museum.
scientists in the British Museum.
Yeah.
They basically said, "Well, you didn't do any papers that were like, that were like, you didn't submit the papers at the right time, or the right kind of papers."
Yeah.
They were basically jealous.
What it was,
They were basically jealous that he knew how to decipher like Yiddish and Egyptian and Sumerian better.
ancient Hebrew and
And all that. Yeah. Yiddish.
Yeah.
And, well,
Hebrew.
he there's different, but he was able to translate ancient Sumerian, Proto-Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian, in addition to Hebrew. He was a genius. And these guys at the British Museum, they have a mummy of this queen of ancient Sumerian dynasty, first dynasty queen, named Parabi. And she has this bizarre head shape. And Sitchin believed that if they would just DNA test this mummy, that it was going to prove a lot of his theories correct, right? But the British Museum refused to do this. His whole life, they had this battle going back and forth of him trying to get them to do this DNA test. And so these are the source of all this discrediting of Sitchin's work. You know, I hear people, oh, he's been debunked. You know, what? All 10 books, 50 years of his research, it's all garbage? It's just, we can just throw it all out? Come on,
absolutely
you know?
No.
Yeah.
But
so I get upset when I hear that.
it's no different than any other ancient manuscript we have. The Book of Job, Daniel. I mean, they're all accounts from people, and there could be mistakes in these accounts, right? Like every time I tell a story about something, it's slightly different. There's no way you can be
telephone
perfect.
Game over thousands of years, you know.
It's who we are, you know.
Yeah.
But the core of it, the meaning there, is really important, and I think he hit on so many things that we're just now starting to even realize it's plausible. You know, it was way ahead of its time for sure.
Yeah, just like Ezekiel and Enoch, you know, they talk about similar type of things being taken up either by a fiery chariot or seeing the earth, you know, from as a sphere and being the right hand of God, being a scribe, you know, writing down what they're seeing. But again, even like the Yellow Emperor of China, Huangdi, he came down to China in a fiery dragon-like chariot, and he gave acupuncture and civilization to the Chinese culture. It's the same theme repeating. In India, the same kind of thing too. It's like they were using rocket technology at that time.
Are you seeing hybrid beings on your... Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted. What'd you say, Mike?
I just said the dragons are the giveaway.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
The fiery chariot, you know, in the sky, you know. Are you finding weird hybrid creatures, like, you know, the human head on a dog's body and in the ancient Sumerian?
Big time.
Finding that kind of stuff all
We're finding sphinxes. We find the scorpions that guarded Ishtar with the human heads. We find the Lamassu.
Wow.
Plenty of Lamassu. I've got big 3D ones. There's griffins, there's dragons, there's reptilian human beings. There's hundreds of different races. In fact, that's one of the things. Once I get these other 2 books I'm working on done, I'm going to try to focus on the different species and create an almanac of the species that we're finding on these pieces and all the different head shapes and show it in a proper way.
These are such important artifacts. I want our audience to understand this. This is very unique, okay? But it's also it's part of our culture. It's part of what we should have inherited. You know, if things like you know Constantinople wasn't burned down, you know Alexandria, things like that, we would know about this stuff. So in the future, are things like this? Are people going to be able to let's say get a hold of some of these things?
Yeah, contact in the desert.
I mean, there's lots of talk. I don't sell too many of these pieces because it's so hard to put a value on something like this. But at the same point, you know, the research is extremely expensive, and putting them in a museum is even more expensive. And you know, what would the Smithsonian do? You know, no, I don't. It's really tough.
Don't
but, I mean,
give
if you
them
think
nothing.
about it, it's kind of a similar situation, though. They bought up all these Egyptian relics right before it was illegal to do so, and then now they're all here. And then they bought up everybody's collections, and now they're the museum. And so these pieces definitely have a home at the museum. And I think that with the legality status right now, you know, they're just art. So. I think we're going to just start showing them in exhibits and making sure people can see them and get a hold of them and be around them, work with them in terms of at least the crystal skulls. A lot of these pieces are occult, divination, and things like Ouija boards, and that stuff's going to stay locked in the vault. Like I'm going to try to keep that from.
You've actually got ancient Ouija boards?
No kidding, really?
Yeah, 100%. Like no question, like I've got it right here. But the little piece, you can see the little piece that you.
The planchette.
The planchette.
Son of gun.
So It's scary. You look at what happened with Constantinople, like you say, at the end of World War One, and what World War One was all about, and what led into World War Two, and maybe what the Germans got from Constantinople, which was the last Babylonian stronghold that the Ottoman Empire destroyed or took over. So the Ottomans, the Muslims, they had
Yeah.
all the Babylonian relics, and they might have known all of these secrets, and that might be what a lot of these wars have been over.
That's
It's just
why
this
Hitler was
information.
so interested in Antarctica.
Well, he got
Yeah.
into it just like King Solomon. He was greeted by an angel and given this ring to control demons. But the reality is that these trickster demons or these Anunnaki can shapeshift, and they can probably make themselves look like any god they want to be. So they could say that, yeah, I am Gabriel here, use this ring. But in reality, it's Saturn's ring around your finger. It's an oath, it's a bond. You sold your soul to the devil. Now you're going to be possessed by demons. And what happened to King Solomon? He was overran by demons. So I think that we see these tricksters pop up, and there's a lot of stories, maybe even with Moses in the Exodus. Maybe that's how they got the ark out of there, was through this whole line of corruption through Solomon and then through the
Wow.
Exodus itself to the Pharaoh. I mean, you trace the money and it's there, but with Hitler,
Yeah.
they started to utilize some of this stuff with the Vril and Thule societies. They were using
Yep.
occult practices, and
Yep.
they had all the things about Saturn and the Black Sun, and they obviously knew something like this was going on, and with the Aryan race and things that they talked about. I don't know if that was the manipulation. Maybe they were being told by trickster demons a false story that made them
A
go completely
corruption. A
off.
Yeah.
corruption of everything. Yep.
Have you
That's
ever
kind of what
read
I
a
agree.
book
think.
called Forbidden Archaeology?
No.
What was the guy's name?
Michael Cremo.
Cremo, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Michael Cremo. I
Uh,
highly recommend this book. Uh, Essentially, mainstream archaeology, they're incredibly difficult to shift. They established a lot of these opinions in the late 1880s in
Victorian times.
Victorian times.
Post-Darwinian Victorian times.
And it takes
Mhm.
like a tsunami of
Of information.
information to shift that. This whole
Oh,
thing
yeah.
about the Americas being populated only through a land bridge, 20,000 years ago or something like that.
The
This has
Bering
been-
Sea.
This has been refuted a 1,000 times over, and yet they're still saying the same thing. It's the Leakeys discovered 200,000-year-old evidence in Arizona. There's one guy who found
Yeah.
old fire pits that are 30,000 years old in South America.
Wow.
It's just on and on and on and on that they're wrong. But to get them to shift is you need like an enormous amount of evidence, and even then they just will not shift. For
So
decades
it's basically
sometimes,
about 700
It-
pages, but
I
it's,
gave
it's
up trying to shift it.
It's
Yeah.
really hard.
You can't do it.
Good luck.
you cannot do it.
The truth floats, and that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. And like you said, it takes an absorbent amount of information. And I know that if I
Yeah.
throw it at the wall with enough data here, it's going to be irrefutable by people, especially with technology advancing in the speed that it is. Already, you can ask AI about some of these pieces, and the answers that you get versus some random stage prop that you bring in, it's pretty interesting for sure to think, But I'm confident that with this paper, if it gets peer reviewed positively, um, we'll move on from this. But it's going to take
Fantastic.
something like that
Yeah.
there's not going to be any discovery that's going to turn the table on this one. It's going to have to be science that's reviewed, and even that is really controlled. These publications and these magazines, to even publish a paper like this requires real thought to be able to present it in the right fashion.
Yeah. Just to remind you, it's called Forbidden Archaeology, Michael Cremo, and there's like another author too, and it's just
Fascinating stuff.
jam packed with archaeological evidence, even some stuff like at Table Mountain in Sonora, California, that goes back. Some of these things they're finding when they're digging up are like 200,000 years old.
Yeah.
That basically go right along with what you're saying here.
At Table Mountain, they found a human skull in 5 million-year-old soil.
Wow.
Well, they found a lot of tools in 200,000 years old too. Yeah.
So it's like, what? We're not supposed to have Homo sapiens sapien isn't supposed to have been around that long ago.
Are we going to take a second break?
Yes, let's take our second break, and then we'll come back
and it'll be short.
Continue on with our wonderful guest, Michael Forrest. So we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Leslie Shaw, and I'm here to tell you about the incident that happened. My husband and I got married on my birthday, so we were celebrating both my birthday and our anniversary camping at Whitewater Campground. And the bank called me and said, "Are you spending all your money in a Texas Walmart right now?" And it's like, "Oh, no, we are not." And they had drained everything out of our account but 86 cents. That's all we had. And at the time, that was our only bank account. And so we were kind of stuck. And fortunately, the bank was great. And they said that they would refund it, our money, between 5 and 9 business days later. So I was trying to figure out what to feed us for that time period. So I remember opening the pantry going, what am I going to make? And then I'm a stained glass artist, and I had several pieces in a gallery at the time, and one of them sold, and we just got lucky. And I remember it was almost $300, and we were able to go grocery shopping with it, and at least feed us for the week it took. And the bank was great. It only took the 5 days, and we didn't have to wait the whole 9. But I would rather it didn't have to happen at all. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us, and our wonderful guest is still with us. Mike, can you show us some of your pieces? Kind of hold them up to the camera.
Yeah, here, I'll take you on a little tour in the room.
Yeah,
here.
let's go on
Great.
a tour.
Yeah, tours are fun.
Of course, you can always go to his, what was the website again to see?
Alien Carvings.
aliencarvings.com.
Yeah. Or our social medias.
Here we go. Here's the tour.
Here's the tour. Wow. Look at this. Look at these gray aliens in the background there for sure.
Right.
This is
Oh, yeah. There's the...
a lot of pieces in here. This is all the Waylo stuff here.
I am so jealous.
We have one. So we really love our piece. We've been showing it off to everyone who will pause long enough to look.
Will appreciate it. Yes.
Right.
Look at the skulls there. Look at the skulls.
Holy camole!
Yeah,
look at that. Look at that piece.
Some of them are huge. Like this one over here. This thing is massive. Oops,
what is it?
Camera's backwards. It's made of that limestone. This is a quartz one here.
Look at that.
Those are skulls? That's a skull on the floor?
Yeah, they're skulls.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
I'll go back down there.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, you're right.
Wow.
Yeah,
What the heck is
and
that?
stuff there. It's got DNA.
Yeah, it looks like
and
the
stuff on
alien
the top
thing
of
for
it.
sure,
The back here.
I mean, the alien movies, the xenomorphs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the crazy part. When I first saw that, I thought it had to be fake, but during the Gen
I saw
6
one thing that
documentary-
looks like our dollar
Sorry,
bill.
I wanted to ask as far as like that one you just saw that looked like the arch from St. Louis. What is that about?
Oh yeah, what's this?
This is actually it's a tripod. There's like a divination pendulum that sits in the middle.
No kidding.
Yeah, some of them are magnetic. Like this guy here is a scale, and then there's this magnetic part that hangs down in front. It's
Whoa! Whoa!
Yeah.
And the ones that you have, Michael, are they? Are you pretty sure that the majority of them or all of them are like from? They're not like modern day fakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are all pieces that we've studied and we've vetted out. We've funded the archaeological extraction process. Not in a Waylos, but all these pieces I'm showing you from Tula right now are absolutely vetted, and they're just ridiculous.
Wow, there's the Egyptian thing right there, the pharaoh head.
Yeah, and it's a duality face, so half of his face is like dead and half of it's alive.
Oh yeah, it's white. He's got eyes and it's a skull on the other side. Wow, look at that.
And this is like a sphere here that's magnetic. The top of it, as you can see, it's moving the whole thing. Oh, there we go. But it spins around on here. And here's proof of the geopolymer. This is a piece of quartz, right?
Yeah.
But right here is that orange geopolymer stone. So we think that they used it as a fill right here to like patch up like a broken stone or a not completely, circular stone.
Right. To
This
make
here
it
is
a perfect circle, right?
this is
Yeah.
it's almost like a Baghdad battery. It's got these contact points here, and I've got a LED light on a wire that I can show you maybe with one hand here. Maybe
I was trying to get him to go be full screen.
I'll get this here.
There we go.
That's it. Sorry, people.
Right. I know I'm fumbling around here too. This is harder than it looks. There we go.
There you go. I see it.
Yeah. So this thing produces power somehow. We have no clue how.
It has some sort of piezoelectricity quality to it.
I guess
It's actually generating electricity.
Yeah.
it generates electricity.
Holy moly!
Yeah. Here's those chariots that are talked about in Ezekiel, the rings within the
The
rings.
rings within the rings. Wow.
Yep. This is a really interesting piece that shows a lot of Luciferian type things. This is looks almost like the thing Aleister Crowley had on his head with the
Yeah, that eye
all-seeing
with
eye
the
or the
rays
Illuminati,
coming out of it.
and it's
Yeah,
birthing a giant. And then there's a tusked being here with the upside down cross, and he's holding the star of Remfram on a pine cone or some sort of crystal, it seems like.
It's a little hard to see from.
Yeah.
I can see it.
This is the that scorpion being I was telling you about here with the human face.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at his little claws and his tail in the
Yeah.
background. Wow.
There's a Stargate.
Yep. Chessboards and
There's the chess set.
Lamassu. Yep.
Wow.
A lot of different star maps that we were
Frickin'
talking about
amazing.
earlier. Another
Wow.
chess set here.
And I don't know if our audience knows, but these skulls that were found, these elongated skulls in Peru, they tried to get DNA off them, and they were able to get mitochondrial DNA, and it's testing out as really bizarre. They're Gaelic, Scottish,
Weird.
in Peru. So it's they're
Look
very
at that
strange.
right there. Look at that right there. Look at that
Oh
one
yeah,
right there.
like the poster in the background. That's the little guy back there.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Too
that
much
tour.
fun.
That was neat.
Yeah, no, it's
Wow.
it's a lot, it's
Oh man, it's beautiful.
That head poster behind you, that's on the wall there. That was really something too. Aren't what is it, agate in the eyes or something to make them black?
it's a prismatic I can't think of the name of the stone off the top of my head, but then the piece itself is jasper and quartz.
Wow, it's so beautiful.
It's a very odd.
It's in the book,
Prismatic
geological
opal?
composition. Prismatic opal, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
That might be it. Prismatic something, but it underneath inside of that thing is completely bored out, and inside of it is a geode of quartz.
Son of a gun. Wow.
Yeah.
That is
It's almost like it sat on something at one point, or who knows.
the technology as far as like the craftsmanship to do that kind of stuff. It's really impressive. It really is.
Yeah.
So your caves are actually quite close to Teotihuacan, right?
Yeah, Tula's not far. It's just to
Mhm.
the east. It's about an hour and a half north of Mexico City.
Okay.
And Teotihuacan is to the west of you then?
Hour northeast-ish, I think, or
Northeast. Okay.
northwest. Yeah.
So you would still say it was in the region. This whole region is
Yeah.
probably the same people that constructed these pyramid sites there, and
I
these
would
wonderful
almost
pieces,
guarantee
you know?
it, all the way down through
Yeah.
Amico-chan and probably into Peru and some places too, but majority I think in Mexico, because that's where we find a lot of the pyramids. The ones that you find that the Mayan did, or the Mayan temples like in Tikal, things like that, it's interesting because the blocks that they're made out of is a substance called quicklime, and so it's funny to see this limestone that we're finding that they were making. It could be the predecessor or the slow lime to the quicklime.
Oh, the process
It had to get quick
being worked
somehow.
out. Yeah.
They evolved or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
For our audience, this area has the Temple of the Feathered Serpent,
Mhm.
and this is a particularly mysterious temple. I can't remember the exact date this happened, but there was a rainstorm, and there was a collapse along the Avenue of the Dead in front of the Temple of the Feathered Serpent.
Oh yes, this one.
It was a big collapse, and it led them to a discovery that there were these underground tunnels that went under the temple.
The Temple of the Feathered Serpent.
And as they got further and further into being underneath this temple, they found some very bizarre things.
Oh, the lakes of
but one of the weirdest thing was the Lake of Mercury. Now, mercury requires an industrial procedure to make. It's not something that the
you got to crush up
primitive
cinnabar
peoples
and
can
extract
make.
it.
From cinnabars, you have to extract it with high temperature. Exactly.
But obviously, if they were creating bronze and irons and silvers and stuff of this nature, they had this technology. And it talks about that the Anunnaki gave humans the metallurgy skills. So it would make sense.
Yeah, Hephaestus, of course, was the Greek metallurgist.
Yeah.
But of course, and also Mercury was the first superconductor. It's a very great superconductor. And you know what? The funny thing is, the Nazis at the end of World War II, one of their submarines was discovered off the coast of, I think it's Norway, and they had like 200 barrels of liquid mercury that they found.
And they were utilizing it in their crafts too. There was that flying saucer type craft.
They had a really crappy flying saucer.
Yeah, the stupa or the bell.
But it came from somewhere. The bell was
the idea
came
from somewhere. That's for sure.
Came from somewhere. Exactly.
And if you look at the Kecksburg crash, it was an acorn-shaped UFO with these symbols on it.
1965.
Yeah.
And a lot of these UFOs have hieroglyphics on them,
Yeah. Rendlesham in 1981 in England.
And look at the Boogosphere. It's got symbols too.
Right. Exactly. You're totally right.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, darling.
We're kind of on a limit as far as like
how long we can go, because
our editor says about no longer than an hour and a half. Because
but I did want to. You were talking about how there's some symbols of Lucifer, and there are a lot of ancient Sumerian stories that predate Bible stories, but like an earlier version of them. And one of the stories in the Bible is about the fall of Lucifer. He was an angel, and he fell out of favor, and he was kicked out, and he was banished to earth to bedevil humanity, and blah, 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 right? Well, after the flood, Enki had warned all the humans on the planet about the coming flood.
Oh, prior to the flood, yes.
Prior to the flood, that it was coming, and but Enlil didn't want him to do that. He wanted us to just be blindsided and wiped out. But Enki liked us because he helped create us, and so he didn't want that. And so we think that there's some stories in the ancient Sumerian texts that talk about how Enlil forgave the humans on Mount Ararat and gave them presents of like animals and grains and processed grains and stuff. But the story also says that he really was quite furious with Enki, and I think it's possible that the story is Enki is Lucifer in this story, and he and his entire household were maybe banished to stay on Earth while the rest of the Anunnaki went back home. And he's been perpetuating their projects here on Earth ever since then. And it makes a lot of sense to me, but that's because I've read this book. But I'm wondering, what kind of form do these Lucifer kind of figures take on your things there?
I think that we see discernment that has to be used in this situation. And with Enki and Enlil fighting with each other so significantly and utilizing language and things against us, and we know that they were committing propaganda and warfare against us. And maybe one was for us, maybe one was against us at different points in different periods, but regardless, their battle of chess and their game of chess was between each other, and we were a
Mhm.
byproduct of that. So when I say discernment, to say that Enki was Lucifer, I have pieces that show that that might not be the case.
Yeah.
In fact, quite a few pieces that show that that may not have been the case. But then again, we don't know who created these pieces and what they were being told by which, right? So same with the ones in Iraq, that they could have been poised against each other. And so that's what I say, discernment on this.
Yeah, the one who wins the
Open
war
mind,
gets
you
to
know.
write the histories, you know?
Yeah, I could have gone back and forth 5 times, and that's why it went from everybody worshipped Enlil to everybody worshipped Marduk, and then,
Yeah.
big changes occurred through the old kingdoms and new kingdoms, whether you go to Jerusalem or Egypt or so on and so forth. So it's important. We did find a yellow emperor, though. I wanted to touch back on that. I know we're running short on time, but that's a huge thing too, to find an Asian looking man like that with a dragon. It was
You did?
yeah, it's on
Huang
my
Di.
YouTube channel. Yep.
Yep.
It is? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
We got to see
it's
this.
it was one of the necessary things when I was going through acupuncture college. You had to, we had to all read the Huang Di Neijing, the Yellow
Yeah.
Emperor's internal classic. That's how it translates, and it's the same story, So it's interesting. It
Yeah.
really is.
Well, so let's wrap up today, and go ahead, Mike, and tell everybody about your next project and what you've got cooking next, and where people should go, and
Stuff like that.
give everybody their book titles again so they can look up your books.
Yeah, my brand new book, Forbidden Relics, just released, volume 1. It's a compendium of my entire collection through November of 2024. It's 400 pages. You can get it on Kindle. It's really fun. You can zoom in on the pictures and everything there. It's also hardback and everything too. But aliencarvings.com is our website, and I'm going to be updating that with a trove of new information with this research that we're going to be presenting here once the paper is officially ready for publish. And pay attention on our YouTube page, because that's where we're going to release a few documentaries. We have a full documentary coming of the sarcophagus find that was found earlier in May, with 8 hours of footage that we're going through. We're interviewing the people who worked for the INH who actually dug that out of the ground, and it should be really compelling to see that in its entirety. Right now, it was tough because there was a lot of question and feedback from the government on this find, and it's very illegal to dig things out of the ground if you disrupt pre-Hispanic sites, and so there was a lot of question on where it was and how that was to be done. But they are going to show it in its entirety, which will put them in a position of compromise, but it's worth it for people to see it start to finish, and I'm really happy they're willing to do that.
Have they come up with a title on it yet?
Not yet. No.
Yeah, okay, so we can't give
So
you a title,
again,
people.
it's
I'm gonna interview them
forbidden.
first.
So your new book is 400 pages long. It's called Forbidden
Relics.
Relics.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, when all this
Volume 1.
starts to come to be, would you mind coming back on the show again and
Absolutely.
updating our audience?
Anytime. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
All right, everyone.
It has been our privilege to meet a new Indiana Jones.
Yeah, a modern day Indiana Jones.
He's got the sagacity of a professor, and he's got the tenacity of a young man.
Appreciate that.
Thanks again for coming on, and
Yeah, thank you guys.
we'll see you all next week.
We'll see you in the near future.
Yeah.
Till next time.